ጤና ይስጥልኝ ክብራትና ክብራን ተመልካቾቻችን እንደምን ሰነበታችሁ ከኢትዮ ዩዝ ሚዲያ ፕሮግራም የቲቪ ፕሮግራም ብሌን ነኝ ዛሬ የክብር እንግዳ ይዘንላችሁ ቀርበናል ስሟም ሰላም ምስጋኖ ትባላለች ሰላም ከዩደብ ባችለር ኦፍ ሳይንስ በፐብሊክ ሄልዝ ተመረቃ አሁን ደግሞ ማስተርሷን ለመያዝ ዝግጅት ላይ ትገኛለች እና አሁን በሚቀጥሉት ከ10 እስከ 20 ደቂቃ ህይወት ምን ይመስላል ከዩደብ ከተመረቀች በኋላ የሚለውን ቶፒክ ይዘን ከሷ ጋር እንጫወታለን አብራችሁ ቆዩ አመሰግናለሁ Hi Salam first and most thank you for coming to our studio thank you so tell me what was life like after you graduated from UW
After graduating with a public health degree I was looking for opportunities and then I took on an AmeriCorps position in Detroit, Michigan. So I did that for about a year, and after that I came back to Seattle. That's where my family is, and worked at Seattle Children's Hospital while I was preparing for grad school. And so now I've been accepted to university for my grad school, so I'm just waiting to attend that in the fall.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So why did you decide to do AmeriCorps?
AmeriCorps, because I've always been interested in service, being able to give back to the community, and at the same time getting work experience in the field of public health, and also Detroit just because I wanted to get something out of the box and kind of challenge myself. And I thought being away from home and being in a city that was completely different than Seattle would give me that opportunity, and that was definitely true.
So now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the recent event that you organized that was really successful. You had a lot of people who showed up.
That's right.
It was at the Ethiopian Community Center. It was, how did you go about organizing it?
You know, about 2 years ago I got an email from the listserv with the ECS's support group, and they were looking into maybe possibly organizing some sort of event to celebrate the March International Women's Month, and that was just something that just clicked. I was interested in it, so I started attending the support group's meetings and talking to them, and through that conversation the idea of doing an open mic came up, and then so I've kind of like took on the lead role, but definitely it's in support of the whole community center and the help of with the whole community center is why this event is possible.
And the name of the event was Wibet Open Mic?
That's right. Wibet Open Mic.
Wibet Open Mic. Okay, so why Wibet Open Mic? How did you come up with the name?
You know, just Wibet, you know, means beauty. And so we thought that was a great name to describe the Ethiopian women that were in our lives.
Right.
And that's what the whole open mic is about, is celebrating Ethiopian women. You know, those that grew up here, those that are in Ethiopia, that were born and raised in Ethiopia and were here, just all sort of different Ethiopian women. We thought that that would describe sort of how we felt about them. So we chose Wibet.
Okay, so you're a community advocate and you're also a poet, an amazing poet, I must say.
Oh, thank
so
you.
You're welcome. How did you start writing poets?
I started writing poetry when I was in Ethiopia, though really I started more doing short stories when I was in Ethiopia, and so I write, and then I would share it with my family members, and I got support from them, you know, to keep writing, and they listened to my story once I wrote it and I was reading it to them. But then also when I moved to the United States, that was when I was in 9th grade, I started attending Roosevelt High School, and I had a creative writing teacher, Mr. Nolet. I'm sure you know him.
Yeah.
So, he was very encouraging, and, you know, he would say, good job, Salam, like, you know, I want you to share that in front of the class, and that was very difficult for me to go up in front of students and read, especially at that time I wasn't very comfortable with the English language, and so I would be nervous, but that was a very good experience, and the more I did it, the more I really liked it. So I just, after that, I've been writing ever since.
So do you write in Amharic, both in Amharic and English still, or only?
You know, mostly I write in English.
Okay.
Though I feel like the fact that, you know, I grew up in Ethiopia really influences what I write. So a lot of my poems would have, you know, Amarinya music, or it will have words, and I usually put in Amarinya words in there just because I'm very much influenced by my upbringing in Ethiopia.
And earlier when we were chatting, you told me about your blog, Tesfanish, correct?
Tesfanish, that's right, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, to say a little bit about that, I started about 2 years ago when I was in Detroit, and that was a way for me to share with friends in Seattle about my experience.
Great.
But after that, I've kind of been using it as a way to share my poetry. So for anybody that's interested in looking at my poetry, definitely that's an opportunity, and it's Tesfanish. So if you Googled it, that would be...
Google Tesfanish and make sure you take a look at her work. So another question that I have for you is, can you name some few Ethiopian role models that you have?
One definitely stands out, and that's Meklit. She is an Ethio-American artist. I think she lives in San Francisco, I believe.
Okay.
She's a jazz artist, and she does these covers of like old Ethiopian music, and I just think that that's really beautiful. She was born and raised here, is what I know, but just the way that she tries to connect with the culture through her music that way really influences me. Just as somebody who aspires to, work on art, I really think that she's pretty amazing. That's Meklit.
So if I ask you, 10 years from today, where do you see yourself?
10 years from today, I believe, I'll be doing some sort of work as a public health professional.
Okay.
My plan is to sort of combine public health with public policy, because what I'm really interested in is using public health research to advocate for policies. So that's sort of where I would see myself, and I definitely see myself still pursuing art. That's something that has always been in my life, so I definitely see myself things.
How about a book?
How about a book? Since I was little, I've always thought that I would write a book. So
That used to be my dream.
Yeah,
Not anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And my family always tells me to do that. So I definitely think that, especially sort of being an immigrant in the United States, we have very unique stories that are not really available to in the main public or media.
Sure.
So writing stories or blogs or whatever it might be, I definitely think that's very important. So I definitely encourage you to pick up on your dream again of writing a book, because definitely we all should hear everybody's voice.
True. Yeah. So I want to go back a little and talk about the event that you recently organized, International Women's Day. So there were a lot of people who participated in the Wibbit open mic. Tell me how the performances were like.
It was pretty great, because we had both female and male performance, both Amharic and English. We had a performer, a poet who was 9 years old. Her name was Faith. She came on and performed a poem called "Where Am I From?" And the audience was really blown away. Her poem actually won a poetry competition with the Seattle Public Schools. So we were very proud of her. But then we also had poets that were, pretty real poets, famous within the Seattle scene. A couple of them, Salamon and them like that. And we had a couple of people out of the community that are not Ethiopian as well come and perform poetry. There was dancing. There was a trivia that was played. So we asked a couple of questions. We gave people clues about these famous Ethiopian and non-Ethiopian women, and we tried to have them guess who this person is. We had drumming performance by a group of African American family that came on and drumming, and I talked about the youth who did the dance. So there were various activities. We had a journalist, Nigist Selfu, I believe is her last name. She's a very famous radio host in Ethiopia, and she came on and talked about her role model. So it was a very diverse kind of open mic where we had very different kind of activities, and I think that was really good. I think the audience really enjoyed that, and I did as well.
Definitely. So on International Women's Day, we also keep in our thoughts the women who are still struggling to gain equal rights in Ethiopia, and especially in the rural areas of Ethiopia. How can we change that?
I think that's a pretty big question, and we all sort of have a role to play. I feel like as a woman myself, I see that there's different struggles in different parts of the world. So this is not only an issue of Ethiopian women in the rural area, but it kind of manifests itself in various communities, both in Seattle and Addis and other parts. So I feel like the best thing to do is really to think of ourselves as allies and sharing a common struggle. So I think there's various ways to do it. Locally, the way we did it here was just sort of making sure that people are aware that there is International Women's Month, and the way we took on the event was to celebrate. So I think people will do it differently, and it's definitely a big issue to deal with, and I hope that people feel inspired to kind of do their part, and I think that's the way that we can kind of solve that issue of women's equity, is that we all do our part.
Yeah, definitely. Before we wrap up our conversation, I want to ask you one more question, and it's about what advice that you have for our younger generation in terms of pursuing a higher education.
I think it's definitely important to pursue higher education, whatever your interest might be, in arts, technology, engineering, whatever, health. Definitely that having that 4-year college degree is very important. So yeah, I mean, I think it is not an easy road for a lot of people, but it's definitely worth the pursuit. And I think, I encourage families to support their young children from very young on to read, to really pursue their interest within education, so that they're able to get to college and compete in the world. So that would be my advice for them.
All right. Well, Selam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
ክብራትና ክብራን ተመልካቾቻችን አብራችሁ ስለቆያችሁ በጣም እናመሰግናለን። በሚቀጥለው ፕሮግራማችን እስከምንገናኝ መልካም ቆይታ